I've brought along some basic rules of tipping, and I was just actually, since I was on the last time too, I was in Club Med in Cancun for their relaunch, which was fantastic. But it's an all-inclusive, and I think we get confused by do you tip at an all-inclusive as well.
Well, I know when I've been to places like Sandals, they wear badges that say no tipping.
Right, and I would totally respect that then, right? I mean, they mean it, right? They want you to have an experience where you're not always worried about that. So it can range from everything to, how much, and I put this out on my Facebook page yesterday, and one of the things that came back is people said, we know we're supposed to tip housekeepers. How much do you tip the housekeeper? And I think it's one of those tips that's often forgotten. And these are guys and gals who work really hard, right? I mean, they're behind the scenes. They're making sure your room is clean. And I'm sure they have to deal with some pretty messy spaces. So the general rule of thumb is $2 to $5 a night if you're staying in a room. And my advice would be also to tip every day, not at the end of your stay, because the housekeeping staff changes. So the last person in might get your entire tip. Now, who knows if they pool them or not? I'm not sure how that works. But it's a nice thing to do it. And also, when you do it every day, here's my little tip on tipping too. I tip a little bit extra the first day to make sure I get great service for the rest of my stay.
That's actually smart.
And so that they know that you really appreciate what they're doing. So that's sort of a dollar thing. Same with a doorman, $1 to $2 a bag. That's enough. Somebody asked me about what about the valet, the guy who brings your car? Do you tip them when he takes your car? When he brings it back? When he brings it back is the appropriate time to tip. Yeah. So anywhere again, $2 to $5. I mean, depending on the service that you're given and how much you appreciate it. Room service is a percentage of what comes to your room, obviously, but do check. A lot of times the gratuity is already included.
On the bill. Yeah.
So, and they won't necessarily correct you if you add an additional tip. So make sure you check. And again, that's a general 15 to 20%, just like you would at a restaurant. So
I
that's
check that on restaurants. I've seen it on restaurant bills.
Yes.
Now,
check it on restaurant bills.
If there's exceptional service, I will give a little extra to that person on top of that. But you should always be aware if it's included.
Absolutely. And if you're not sure, ask. I mean, ask the person, is the tip included? And they will let you know, and they'll hopefully tell you the truth as well. But ask. It's always worth asking. Concierge, that can be a tricky one. A concierge at a hotel can do many different things for you, whether they're getting theater tickets, whether they're just pointing out a restaurant down the street. But if you have a concierge who goes above and beyond, when I was in New York, our concierge at the Peninsula Hotel, he actually walked out of his stand and led us with an umbrella to the subway station so we wouldn't get wet.
That's nice.
Yes, this was very nice.
That's worth a tip.
Right? Yep. So things like that, you go, okay, yeah, this was exceptional service. And you can always think to yourself, if you don't want to have to put out money for that tip, waive the service off. Say, you know what, I'm okay. But don't take the service and then not give them something in return. This is their livelihood. So we talk about wine sommeliers. A lot of people don't tip wine sommeliers. If they've given you excellent advice, you might want to leave an extra 5 or 10% on the price of the bottle towards them. That's a good rule of thumb.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've never heard of anybody tipping the wine sommelier. I figure if they're selling you wine and you're buying the wine, that's part of
the service.
It's a matter of choosing this or that. I mean, they're selling. It's like, do you tip the sales girl when you buy stockings?
It's a good point, and I think because it's in the service industry. I mean, I think anyway. Just some rules of thumb. You're right. Spa service. I'm always torn on that one too.
I know,
because I do tip when I go and get a manicure, a pedicure, maybe a facial. I'll tip.
Yes.
When I get a massage, I don't.
No.
Because it's massage therapy that I'm usually in for, right? And it's one of those things I claim on my insurance, my health insurance. And that. So I tend to think of that as a professional service. But 15 to 20% on a spa service is normal. But I think that massage therapy one is a bit of a tricky one for some of us.
And it's interesting because sometimes you go to a registered massage therapist at a spa, but I don't consider registered massage therapy as a quote-unquote spa service.
Right.
I do consider it a medical
it would be like tipping
visit.
Your physiotherapist or something, right? So
that's how I feel.
I think if you're out of a spa, and maybe again, if you're not sure, ask at reception. Say, what do people normally do here, so that you don't feel either get tipped when you shouldn't have, or you feel like you're a cheapie, right? So I mean, the general rule of thumb then is tip what you're comfortable with. If you're getting a service where tips are expected, make sure you include that in your budget. As you know, I'm all about setting your travel budgets, and that can add quite a bit to your budget.
How do you feel though if you let's use the restaurant as the most basic example? If you get lousy service,
right?
Do you still tip?
I think, what, I do. And I'll tell you, but I don't tip very much. I'd go down to like a 10% or something. I still do because there can be many reasons, I think, why your service might be lousy. If the food is late, if it's cold, if the food is bad, it's not the server's fault.
But what if the server's rude?
If the server's rude and bad, I would tend to actually talk to the manager after the fact. And I think that's a good way to do that. And that's just my comfort level. I'm not a very confrontational person. And I think that they probably would need to know that the service their customers are getting is bad.
So you would say to the manager,
I was pretty dissatisfied
but
dissatisfied
I
with
was
the
very
service.
dissatisfied with the service, and I probably won't be back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would actually, if the service were that bad.
Well, I have to tell you, even with hairdressers,
Mhm.
I
Oh,
have
good point.
friends who say they will tip the colorist,
Mm-hmm.
they will tip the hair washer, they won't tip the stylist because they're
fine.
already paying them, you know,
Huge
a
amount.
few $100s to cut
To get
and
their
blow
hair
dry
done.
their hair, and they think it's almost an insult to give somebody $15.
And that's funny because I would say that you should, you know, again,
And
I think
and
just
I'm not
ask.
even. It's just a different way of
Yep,
looking at it, and I
absolutely.
thought, I wonder. I have never thought of it that way. But what do you think?
I actually just tip my stylist, and then I know she gives a portion of those tips to
To
the
the
girl who
others,
washes your
yeah.
hair and to the colorist if there's been a separate person doing that. So I think, you know, what we want to do is tipping is really a way of showing appreciation. It's good manners, how's that? And it's custom as well. So you want to check all of those things. And if you're in a different country or you're not sure what the custom is, just ask or look it up before you go. Some places tipping might be an insult to a professional, right? In other places, it's part of their livelihood and they expect it.
The one which I recently went through, and it's not a travel thing, but it was moving.
Ah.
And you know what? Those guys, which I will do a plug, door-to-door movers were awesome. I actually gave a very healthy tip to
I have done that.
the guys who moved my stuff because they were just above and beyond and polite and nice and good to my kids and
No,
helpful.
I have done
and,
that as well.
You know, it's money, but you feel good about tipping when you've been given that kind of service.
Absolutely.
Click the channel subscribe button for full-length interviews and more from What She Said here on YouTube.